You are recording.
Doke. Very good. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for accommodating the postponement. This is our meeting that we usually have twice a year. And just to take a step back for a couple who may not have been before, this committee was actually created at least a decade, maybe even somewhat longer than that ago, at a time when we found that there was some kind of stressed relationships between the town and the Minuteman district, of which we're a member, and Minuteman is a key provider of vocational ed services for kids in Needham. And in trying to figure that out, we found out that there are numerous contact points between Minuteman and the town, and that it made sense to just get together and kind of air out what, if any, issues there were at each of those points, whether it had to do with, is guidance working the way it's supposed to? Is the town satisfied with the budget and assessment process? As years went on and Minuteman got to the point of needing a major capital overhaul, we started working on those issues as well. And by and large, it's worked out fairly well. So it may seem a little odd that a committee only meets twice a year, but it seems it has worked out very well for us. We're pulling people who, in many cases, have a lot of other obligations. They commit the time to get here. I think it's worked out well both for the town and the district, and we've stayed on that pattern once in the fall and once in the spring. Usually in the fall, we're reviewing how enrollment has worked out at the school, and in the spring we look at primarily at the budget for the upcoming year. And of course, in between there are always other issues, and particularly the whole business of guidance is a two-way street. Are the kids that should be that can most benefit from Needham and going to Minuteman, are they the ones that are applying, and are they being accepted? And if something else is happening, how do we work that out? I think we've been in a good stretch. So having said all of that, I guess I'm going to just come, and I can see that at least my screen appears to be frozen to me. I hope you can all hear me.
We can hear you.
We hear you fine.
That's good, because I'm just about to stop talking. But we come to the first item on the agenda, which is just to review how are we doing in terms of enrollment. Is Minuteman's total enrollment, Needham's enrollment at Minuteman, and then because of the fact that we're phasing into the new system of organization for the district, are we making the enrollment and application enrollment target projections and goals for within the district that in turn are key to supporting the capital and operating costs of the district?
So is that my turn now, Dan?
I guess it is.
Okay.
Go ahead, Superintendent.
I'm going to try. I may have sent you this, but can you see that?
I can now.
October and 1 over the last 3 years. So we are meeting and exceeding our enrollment projections. You can see under October 1, 2020, we have a total of 634 students. We look at Needham, we're up to 27 students. And our enrollment design for the school, I'll remind us, was 628. So we've already exceeded the design enrollment, the MSBA design enrollment for the school. Despite COVID, we're on a track to meet or exceed the applications that we had last year. The Department of Ed is actually last year for this fall. We're actually filling out some reports for the Department of Ed about that. We had, from my brief look at it this afternoon, we had over 340 applicants for a freshman class. I think we accepted 180. And I actually went back to the projections that were done 10 years ago, and we're meeting those projections or exceeding them in many cases when you look town by town. So we're pretty pleased with that. I don't know if there are any questions about the enrollment You can see I break out the declarant towns, which now includes Belmont, which has 45 kids here right now, the highest they've had in about 18 years. But they're paying capital fee and non-resident tuition and et cetera. There we go.
Ed, I don't know if it was sent, but I'm just wondering, well, will we end up having this sent to us?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure these numbers, the most recent October one has been certified by the state now. So these would be the numbers that we'd be using in the assessment calculations. So we're pretty pleased. I'll stop sharing that now.
Superintendent, what's the other category in the other towns? Just refresh my memory, please, on that.
There are just other non-resident towns. We have kids from 35 different communities. So there's a number of towns that have one kid. So we just grouped them all in the other category, other non-member towns. Okay.
That's good. Are we ready to move? One question about the Belmont. Now, are they currently rebuilding their high school?
I believe they have a new high school in the MSBA pipeline, yes.
But it's not under construction.
I don't think so.
Okay, my question really was, is this a temporary bump in Belmont's participation, or is this real likely to be long-term buy-in from the citizenry?
From what we've been experiencing, there's a much greater interest in from Belmont in Minuteman. Obviously we only admitted 10 kids in the freshman class. I think there were, George, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were 35 or 40 freshman applicants from Belmont. If we were able to accept them all, Belmont would be over 80 students.
Thank you. Are we ready to move to talking about the capital project and fields update?
Capital project, yep. Sure. So our MSBA project is on. We're going through the final closeout of the project. And that's going well. We expect to, you have to carry that project for about a year before MSBA does its final audit. We're negotiating a couple $100,000 with the construction management firm about final closeout. But if you recall, we anticipated that we would have, $5 to $6 million left over from this project to put towards a fields project, which when we submitted our original MSBA design plans, it included a field project. A few years ago, there was some interest on the town of Lexington to build a bigger project. So we went through an analysis with them and created something that we call a final build, which was bigger than the athletic fields that we're actually going to build. But so did you get a copy of the presentation they did? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
PowerPoint?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you. It came in I'm speaking up, but it came in an email attachment that should have gone to everybody that's on the meeting at this point.
Okay, well, I'm just going to pull a slide out of that to talk to for a moment. Here we go. So can you see that slide?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we went out to bid a while back for athletic fields and alternates. The reduced scope of the athletic field project was basically 3 synthetic fields. And then there were alternates, 6 alternates, which included the lighting for all 3 fields, as well as some equipment and perimeter fencing, so that that would surround all 3 fields. We had a very good process for bidding. We had 8 bids. The lowest bidder was Heimlich out of Woburn, who has done a couple of projects in the area recently that were, their references were very good. And they came in under our estimated bid for the base bid. We were figuring about $5.1 million in the base bid construction costs. They came in about 4.4. I think we included some of the other bids in this PowerPoint. So we had been planning, the school committee had been planning on a $5.9 million project, and where we got that money was about 4.1, and there's a couple $100,000 in question there from the MSBA project, 615,000 from our revolving funds, and 1.2 million from our stabilization fund. So the delta between what we've budgeted and what all the alternates would be is somewhere around $2 million. And the successful bidder has agreed to keep the pricing on all those alternates until the middle of January. So I've met with the town managers a couple of times in the last month or so, and was encouraged by them to continue moving forward with looking at borrowing the difference so we could basically get the project done. As you know, lighting on fields really expands the hours of use, expands the potential and opportunity for revenue that would go back into the revolving fund to offset the costs of the build. So, yeah. Well, yeah, so this is the project as bid with all the alternates. And I actually found out just a little while ago that the fill, there's a lot of concern on the part of parents and stuff about the petroleum-based fill that has been traditionally put in to synthetic fields. This is an all-natural product. It's actually made of yellow white pine, which is a sustainable, all grown in the United States. And it's an all-natural product. There's no petroleum-based stuff in it at all. Very safe with a sand underbase. So the athletes seem to rate it pretty highly. So, just moving along, and anyone can stop and ask me questions, I guess, but we were pretty excited about the bids. The way, the managers, and you all know that you can borrow money fairly cheaply right now. We assumed about a 1.7% interest rate. It's more like 0.7. So we were encouraged to look at this. We worked with Rick Manley, the bond counsel, with our financial advisors. We've also kept MSBA informed all along the way about how we're going to go about finishing the athletic fields. They said, thanks for letting us know today. So the school committee would vote to authorize the borrowing, but that authorization does not take effect until all 9-member towns either approve it or they do not disapprove it. So from the time the school committee takes a vote, it'd be 60 days in which a town could call a town meeting and say no. And if any town said no, then the borrowing would not go forward. And we would just go forward with our base bid with the 3 synthetic fields. So we've been talking with, today we were talking with 3 select boards and FinComs. We have some more meetings tomorrow and throughout the week. We're providing some more information, but we're generally being encouraged to continue this track. We also, I think, sent out a projected share. Needham's share for this additional $2 million over 10 years would be between $14,000 and $16,000 a year. That would be part of the Minuteman assessment. In reality, it probably wouldn't hit till, if it hits in FY22, I'd be surprised. It more likely FY23 but it could be partially in FY22. So we're pretty excited to kind of put the icing on the cake for the project. And so that's where we're at.
Very good. Question, comment?
A question. I noticed in the presentation, there was some anticipation of potentially renting the facility out. Is there a budget, a line item, or can you give us a sense of what you think that could generate? Okay. And how that would impact every town's respective, would that just go against our total allocation for the school?
Yeah, that's a good question, because we have something in a regional school called revolving accounts. And so the revenue from the field generation, from the revenue generated by the fields would go into the revolving fund. And by statute, we cannot spend that money on anything else unless it relates to the asset that was generating the revenue. So in our budgeting, we've set aside $168,000 to $175,000 a year in capital replacement costs. And then there's going to be some operational costs that we'll take right out of the revolving account that would never see the operating budget. We've actually been talking more about that as this gets fully ramped up, and you think of all the other resources that we have at the school. As this slide notes, we have a theater, a gym, we have corporate meeting rooms. There's a lot of potential revenue to be generated from the assets that we have in place now. And we're thinking that the revolving fund would be a place to kind of fund some support for that. Because if you can imagine, well, we have literally hundreds of people that rent different assets of our campus. Obviously, with COVID, it's a pretty quiet situation right now, and we haven't had home fields for 3 years. So we've been paying other people to rent fields. And I should mention, we did a pretty in-depth analysis, sort of in concert with the town of Lexington, when Lexington was interested in partnering with us in a larger build. Long story short, we found it wasn't a real compatible partnership with Lexington, but we did send our analysis to a company called Ballard and King, and I can send that analysis to anyone who'd like it. And they reviewed our revenue projections, and they were more conservative in the numbers, so we used their numbers. And that year 1 and year 2 that you see on that slide is based upon the Ballard and King numbers. There's about 6,000 hours of potential rental hours beyond Minuteman's use. And we have a tiered user rate that prioritizes member towns immediately after the high school's use. So if there was a Needham club or something that wanted to rent our facilities, either a high school or a municipal club or some, there's all different forms of them, I found out, they would get priority over someone from Waltham or an out-of-district community. So we've tried to bake that tier in based upon our history with different renters over the years. But even still, Ballard and King said, let's just use the lower rate for everything. And that's what we did in this analysis.
So can I just ask you a quick question? Just go over, I think I have different slides than the ones you've been working off. So just the total amount that you're looking to bond and have the member towns share. And then I was looking for a timeline of town meeting approval that you mentioned something about 60 days after a school committee vote. I mean, what's the timeline for that, for your authorization? And
well, the authorization can take place in one of 2 ways. There can be an affirmative vote in a town meeting. Normally, we'd go through this in the regular spring town meeting process, where in the next month or 2, we'd be coming up with warrant articles and But because of the pricing that we received, which was lower than we anticipated, because of the opportunity that we have in these alternates, we're moving forward with this discussion about borrowing it now. So the town meeting doesn't have to take a vote and say yes. If a town wanted to say no and stop the project, then they would have to have a town meeting within 60 days of the vote of the Minuteman School Committee to say no. If the town
Has
chooses,
that vote taking place yet?
no,
Okay,
no,
sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to
no,
get
that's,
the baseline.
appreciate- ask all the questions. It took me a couple of years to figure out what non-disapproval really was. So if nobody meets, if everybody's okay with it, they would decide, okay, we're not going to have a meeting and we're okay with the project and we'll just let the project move forward and we won't say no. It happens quite frequently in smaller amounts like this one is in regional school systems. You may recall we went through a couple of years of town meeting under 16, chapter 71, 16N, where for 2 years in a row, Belmont said no to our Minuteman School project. And then we had to go to a district-wide ballot to finally get approval. So we want to be real transparent with all of our towns about what we're doing. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but it is additional borrowing, and we don't want to be putting any towns in a bind or not being able to explain why we're doing this and the value of it.
Thanks. There's one last question, just procedurally. When does the time for voicing disapproval expire?
60 day, it would be January 17th.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, stop sharing. Were there any other questions about the fields that I haven't answered or that are lingering?
I was just going to ask for input from Kate, because I know that she and Dave Davison, the finance director, have been involved in reviewing some of this material.
Sure. I went to one meeting and Dave went to another meeting, and we were satisfied that the town's interest in this project would be suited. The borrowing cost will, maybe it will be this low for longer, but the fact that the school has the bids set now and they're very favorable, which is an excellent point. And Needham's share is not something that we feel is going to be overburdensome for our budget. So that would be our recommendation to you.
I think that covers that question. What the next on the agenda list is.
Excuse me, Dan, can I just ask Barry a question? Where do we stand with the Finance Committee's evaluation of what we just heard from the superintendent?
This is the first we've discussed. We haven't discussed it as a committee. It hasn't, and we have a meeting on the first week of December, I believe. So we could put it on the agenda for that meeting and discuss it and approve it then.
So Superintendent, I know you said, and sorry for, I don't want to ask too many questions, but it's kind of what I do, I guess. Is Needham one of the finance committees? You said you've been meeting with select boards and finance committees. Do you anticipate meeting with or briefing or the Needham?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Great.
Zoom is wonderful.
It is. Yeah.
I've been at 4 meetings in 4 different places tonight, so.
It's the future of our economy. It's wonderful.
Their stock is way down today.
Yeah, and it never fails. It never fails. All right,
No, I'm
thank
happy
you.
to come to any meetings, Barry, and
Yeah,
Dan.
I'll send Louise a note and we'll make sure it gets on the agenda for December.
great, thanks.
It'll be good. Good. Guidance, and then I want to turn specifically to Tom because I don't think that we spoke to you at the last meeting and we said we would pick that up next time we got together. So how are we doing? Are we getting, are you feel that the school's presentation to your kids and families is right and that they're right and that they're doing well in terms of applications, in terms of getting the kids for whom Minuteman is appropriate enrolled there?
Sure. Thanks, Dan. So Tom Denton, Director of Guidance for Needham Public Schools. And, you know, the guidance counselor in Needham, Mark Yetman, is really the huge advocate and is really the person who is coordinating with Anthony on all sorts of activities. I have to say, I had an opportunity to watch the videos that have you put out, and we've shown our students and families. They're really, really top notch, and it really was something that that I really felt was just. I mean, you have such incredible facilities and such wonderful ways to showcase your program. So I just love what you're doing. I think at this point. As Anthony said recently to Mark, Needham is a tough nut to crack in terms of really making sure that our, not just our 8th grade parents, but our 7th grade parents become aware of the programming, the benefit, what the outcomes are for students who go to Minuteman, and also for parents who are concerned about what colleges their students are going to. Anthony has shared, you know, where the Needham residents are going and also where Minuteman is going. So we're really happy with the connection that we have at this point. The Q&A and you know, as Ed said, Zoom is an incredible way to promote, you know, a place like Minuteman, because we can send out things and attach things to the Pollard website to make sure that they're available for our parents and students. So, you know, Mark and I both are not satisfied with the number of Needham students who enroll each year. And it's not that we necessarily are identifying kids who we think should have gone. It's more that we just know we have a number of students who would significantly benefit, and we just know that not all of them are considering it as seriously as we want them to. So that's, you know, I sat down with Mark before this meeting, and you know, I mean, other than not being able to go up and visit, which is obviously, you know, a big deal given what the school is these days. You know, we're happy with where we are, but we're not happy with the numbers, but we're doing what we can. I've always felt that making sure that parents, as they enter 7th grade, are aware of what Minuteman has to offer is really. And maybe even earlier, but certainly at 7th grade, because I think a lot of parents and students, by the time they enter 8th grade, are already thinking about going to Needham High School and really have that in their mind, as opposed to looking at alternatives. So,
Do you think that there are things that is the need for improvement more on Minuteman's end, on Needham's end? Is it just a cultural thing? Is it something that might just be easier to work with when we get out of the epidemic management?
I definitely think it's going to be easier once we get out of that, because I think when people get a chance, when students and parents get a chance to see the building, and you know, it's going to be a huge boost. I think over the past couple of years, I mean, maybe, and let me know if the enrollment numbers prove me right, that we're slowly increasing. But, you know, I mean, when I hear the numbers at Belmont, I'm thinking, you know, that's, you know, someone at Belmont and someone at Minuteman have formed a connection that has really been successful. I think first and foremost in terms of convincing and letting parents see what an opportunity it is. And we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. So to answer your question, I think from our side, we're doing more to make sure that time is available to expose our students to Minuteman. We can always do more. I do think, it's exposure. I wonder, I hadn't thought about this till your question, Dan. I wonder if outside of the school kind of environment, if there's places to build the understanding of the value of Minuteman outside of just, Pollard. I should know this. I don't know if you visit Monsignor Haddad, if they're part of that in some ways, as students from other schools in Needham are showing interest, that might spark and create a little bit more of a buzz. But
George may know that. I don't.
What's that?
George may know that. I don't know if we're at that school as well.
Yeah, Parochial Middle School in Needham.
No, we haven't been there.
Okay. Something to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I have a good relationship with the guidance folks there. And I'd be glad to talk to Anthony about it. But I think whatever we can do to increase the exposure to the programming, it's a good thing.
Good. The operating budget, both this year and next. Doctor?
Well, the operating budget this year, we're fortunate than a lot of our colleagues at regional schools, as we had a budget passed by July 1st by 8 of our 9 towns. So we then went through the process of sort of reallocating the budget based upon COVID. We did a number of layoffs, active layoffs of paraprofessional staff, and not filling some positions because of our hybrid model. Just to give you a little background, our hybrid model right now is for the high school, we have 1 grade in at a time. And that grade is full-time, full day in person, just in their vocational technical shop area, while the other 3 grades are all remote. And all the teachers are here at Minuteman teaching remotely from this building. Our numbers have been very, very good. COVID numbers, we've had no cases in school. And if you've read, schools are not the super spreaders that people were thinking they were. And we've been tracking 35 towns and their yellow-green status. And now they just changed how they make the yellow-green status. So we're looking at that, but the numbers still look very good. And I'm hoping we can bring another grade back into the school in person. So we'd be up to about 50% capacity, hopefully between Thanksgiving and Christmas. But again, we'll see how the numbers go.
And Ed, that's only for career tech courses, right? Academic is still going to be remote.
We'll see. I want to bring kids back in for academics as well. We're having a preliminary planning meeting about how to do that tomorrow morning. I feel like, well, first of all, we have 2 very large classes. Our freshman and sophomore class are, whatever that was, 170, 180 kids versus a senior class, which is 130, and a junior class, which is 140. So I want to match the bigger classes with the little classes. And I also want to give the academic teachers some life breath from having kids in person. It's really hard none of us got in the business to do this remotely, the teaching business. So our budget's in very good shape. We've gotten some support from our towns in terms of the CCRV money. We've gotten some grants in. We've spent quite a bit on PPE. We've added some nursing services. We've also have had to upgrade some of our technologies because the kids who are in the pretty robust computer heavy programming, like programming and web design or design and visual communications or engineering and robotics, their laptops that we gave them when they came in weren't designed to do it all remotely. So we've upgraded as much as we can. We're hoping to get through this year and hoping they'll get. We've had to also put some internet services in different homes to try to make sure everyone had equal access. But we're saving money on transportation. We're saving money on some other areas. FY22, you know, we're we're planning for the worst and hoping for the best. We start our FinCom we're in a budget process now where we're having our advisory committees. Each of our programs have CTE programs have an advisory committee made up of business and industry. They make recommendations to us about what we ought to be purchasing in terms of big equipment. We don't have a lot of big ticket items. We've been very successful with grants over the last 4 years. We're in really good shape when it comes to capital equipment. We do have a new animal science program that was approved to start this fall. We couldn't start it because we couldn't get a teacher. We offered it to 3 folks, and because it was a half-time position, 2 of them were vets, practicing veterinarians, and they just couldn't take that kind of a reduction with no certainty. So next year, the only full-time position added is going to be an animal science teacher, going to go from half-time to full-time. We're also doing some planning around how do we accept more kids into the building. You know, having a waiting list is nothing to be proud of. We should take no solace in the fact that kids are not getting into Minuteman who want to be here. We wanted a school of 800. That's what we should have had. We had to compromise and get a design enrollment of 628 because that's what we could get past by our member towns at the time. So we're doing an analysis of how we can accommodate 800 in this building, and the pinch point of that is really a lack of academic classroom space, because the 628 was what the academic spaces were designed around, and there's not a lot of opportunity for let's say creativity in those spaces as there was in the CTE spaces, the career and technical education spaces. So I don't think there's going to be any impact on FY22, but we certainly know the value of that out-of-district revenue to keep assessments down, to keep our overall per pupil assessment down, and the demand is there. We think this is the new, I hate the phrase new normal, but the interest is there for a variety of reasons, and our school is too small. If there are any specific questions about the budgets, Bob is here, the director of finance. Amy's here. She can talk about guidance, special ed. I think George is still awake.
That's helpful to me. Are there any questions? Is there other business? You know, when you're talking about the school being, you know, I just went through years and years of tugging back and forth, and I know probably everybody that was involved in that. We got some good things done, and there were a lot of missed opportunities and roads not taken. And I think we can say the good thing is we managed to get it. We did manage to get it done, which didn't seem likely, and the people that are there are benefiting, and hopefully we take some of these lessons and carry them forward. The main one for me is every time that you try to plan anything regionally in Massachusetts, and probably this may be true anywhere, but we happen to be in Massachusetts in this very fraught political climate. We saw the same thing as you see in some of these national issues, which is There's benefits for everybody in working together, but there's always a pull to say, okay, I'll do a little better if I go on my own, or who's getting a better deal than me out of the general benefit. This is a tension that has damaged our district, and it's damaged our country. And we will remain to see, but maybe at least this district is on a good path now. And I appreciate the work of everybody involved.
Well, we appreciate the support of Needham too, so.
Do we want to pick a date for a next get together?
What month is this? This is November.
Usually we would look in March of next year, and if you'll excuse me, I'm going to jump away from the camera and find my calendar.
We're particularly partial to St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, boy.
You're lucky, Ed. It's not a Monday this year.
It's a Wednesday. Okay, we can do the 15th.
The Ides of March. I mean, that's another whole thing.
15th of March, sound like a plan?
Sounds good. Day
And-
after daylight savings time.
Is there, you know, with the COVID environment, we find sometimes it's easier for people to meet at 6? Or do we want to stay with the 7? Or Marianne, I'll leave it to you. You were looking like you were going to say something.
Well, I was going to say, if Nuwari is still meeting, that would be a Nuwari night, and Nuwari is meeting at 6. So,
And what, can we say 7:30 then? Because it's important for Marianne to be able to be at both of those meetings.
yeah.
That's fine with us, yeah.
7:30 is a party. Sounds good. Excellent.
Great. So Barry, just let me know when you need me at the FinCom meeting.
Sure. Is the presentation you sent out similar to the one you've been making to the towns?
It's, yes, but there's some refinements that we may have after tomorrow's construction meeting around the amounts. So I'll try to revise it after tomorrow's meetings, and then I'll send it out to you again with a date tomorrow.
Ed, when we get done, I will email our admin, and who should she connect with?
Connect with me, it's fine.
Okay, great.
Can I just add also, Barry, that we've been talking about the possibility of using some of our CARES money to help supplement Minuteman. I don't know if that was mentioned earlier. That's something you might want to put on the same agenda. And if we did that, we would need a reserve fund transfer.
Okay.
So it's an amount in the range of $13,000.
Thanks, Kate.
All right.
I don't make the agenda anymore, but I will, I'll pass that along.
What is that for, Kate? Just for COVID remediation, or what is it?
Could we ask Minuteman to explain it? Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yes, so it's for COVID-related expenses. Some of it's technology, some of it's communications. We didn't have a Zoom account before this happened. Those are the kind of expenses that we incurred as a result of COVID-19, and it fits within the description of the Coronavirus Relief Fund expenses.
And the regional schools didn't get any allocation,
Right.
like the town in Needham and the school both got several millions, and the regional schools did not get any.
No regional school. We were left completely out of the formula.
Are these contributions going to be replicated by other member towns, Kate?
It's my understanding we had a meeting with all 9 of us. There seemed to be general support. I don't know,
Yeah.
Ed, if you have.
I think we have 5 of the 9 so far are committed, and then we send a little letter certifying that we'll use it for the intended purpose, and that we track that as expenditures. So if we're ever audited, or you get audited and they need to ask you where your money went, we'll show you what we spent it on. It's a little MOU, I guess it's called. Or
Yeah, I can send that letter to you if you'd like.
Sure. Send it to Barry.
Barry, I'll send you the letter that I have of request. I may
Okay.
have sent it already, but I'll send it again.
Awesome. I'm just gonna forward it to Louisa. Whatever you do, just CC
I
her.
copy Louise on everything.
Great. Well, thank you. This has been, I'm glad to see the enrollment doing so well.
Very good. As I'm sitting here thinking, I've always been of the opinion that technically this is not a governmental body under the open meeting law, but we always, we do have meeting notes that we prepare and put in the public record, and this Zoom has been publicly posted as well as the agenda, and the record of that will be maintained in the same way as the town maintains the other Zoom meetings. But that brings me to the question of dissolving the meeting, and if there's no objection, I will ask Sandy to do that. As this is the first time I think I've had to do this on Zoom. That's why I'm working on this process. Does that make sense?
You probably need a motion to adjourn, Dennis.
Well, do you as town manager feel that we should vote on the motion to adjourn?
Publicly noticed meeting.
Well, then I believe that we shall. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second. Is there a discussion on the motion?
I think it's a good idea. That's my discussion.
I just don't get to make many motions, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Good work for being a bit out of practice. So, all right, Jeff?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Bob? Got to turn off Mr. Girardi, you got to turn your mic on.
Yes.
Mr. Fee?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Heidi?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Superintendent?
Yes, sir.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Kate?
Not a member of the committee.
I don't know who is.
That's okay. We'll sort it out by next time.
Okay,
You've got everybody covered.
doing our best.
Tom.
And Tom.
Yes, I'm good.
Okay.
And I, as chair, sort of, and yes, also, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe, everybody.
Bye, everyone.